Good evening, lunatics. You probably noticing a little different atmosphere here. I am coming to you from Duncan, South Carolina. You're going to finally get to meet the new guy. We've been talking about this for a while that there was a sale of Blue Ribbon, and Larry decided last year to make an offer, and someone came along. And so we're going to introduce you to him in this episode. You're going to get to learn about his history, how he got here, how he got hooked up with Blue Ribbon, how he eventually made the decision to purchase the company, and kind of where we're going to go from here. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Blake Chastain. So, Blake, thank you for being on the podcast. Hey, thanks for buying the company. Appreciate that.
My
Um,
pleasure.
you are Blake Chastain. You have been in the transportation industry for a while. And so I guess we should probably maybe start with how'd you find Blue Ribbon and how this kind of happened, and then we'll backfill your transportation experience.
Absolutely. So, funny enough, anybody who's been in transportation for any amount of time knows sometimes it's hard to make friends within the. Uh, I had tried several times here locally to reach out to different trucking companies and said, "Hey, will you be my friend?" And it just never seemed to work out. Everybody felt like you were trying to pee on their lawn, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so uh, I started listening to some different podcasts. Some guys out on the West Coast, and I figured that was far enough away that I could listen to them. We potentially could strike up a conversation, and they wouldn't be offended by things that I did or whatever. And I very quickly came upon you guys, and you were pretty high rated in the podcast on Apple. So I started listening and jumped in very late in the game. So I was like, maybe I should hit the reset button. So I went way back in the archives and started listening through to see how you guys became who you are. And if I'm being completely honest, we're very successful on the uh, distribution side of things. When it comes to warehousing, distribution, sending trucks, routing trucks, LTL, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to over the road driver selection, things like that, especially truck help, that was something we were really struggling with, was our truck help. And so I was like, I got to stop pretending like I have the answer for everything. I need to find somebody, have an open conversation, say, hey, what do you got? What do you do when you're stuck on the side of the road in the middle of Ohio at 2 o'clock in the morning? Who are you calling? And so I sent an email to you
Mm-hmm.
um, and basically said, hey, man, uh, can we talk? And you're like, sure, we can talk. That'll be $150 an hour. And whatever, I just joking, whatever you said. He said, go through this link, set up a time, and we can do it. And so I put in, did the Zoom link, and you, me, and Larry met. I said, guys, here's where I'm at. I'm just frustrated. We're successful, but there's so much of our business that could be better. Uh, Areas of knowledge that I think we're missing, and a lot of that revolves around how do we handle the mechanics of, because what I had on my staff at the time was dispatcher, drivers, salespeople, but very few of my people knew how to crawl up underneath the truck and go, oh, yeah, it's your flux capacitor, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the case may be. And, you know, so we just kind of started a conversation. And I'm a very much cards on the table kind of guy, so I walked in that day and I said, here's who I am. Here's what I'm trying to do. You know, uh, when it comes to warehousing, distribution, setting up lanes, whatever, you're not going to find anybody that knows it better than me. When it comes to tuning these trucks, I, I don't know. What's the difference between gasoline and diesel fuel? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not my world. So we had an incredibly good conversation, I thought, out the door, and you were actually working on a truck actively while we were having that conversation. And I told you, I said, hey, I've got some. Um, Here's some that I'm looking at purchasing. What do you think? And you at first were like, oh, they're newer. I wouldn't do it. And then I said, but look at the specs. And you looked at the specs and you go, oh no, I cut them a check right now. Take it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that particular deal kind of fell through because I found out I was working with some shysters on that particular deal. But uh, Larry made a comment during that and said, "Hey, man, you seem to have a very similar mindset to us. Maybe there's something there. Maybe we can do something together. Maybe we can collaborate. Maybe we can work something out." I said, "Sounds great." So going back into the podcast and continuing to listen, I said, what would give me a better view of what you guys are doing, how you're doing it, than to be one of the truckers, right? And I think you actually floated the idea and said, well, we got two for sale right here. What do you think? So I purchased one of those trucks and became one of the truck owners. And wasn't much longer after that I was having a conversation with Larry. He was just kind of sharing with me where he was in life. Um, you know, kind of wanting to have some more time to devote to mentoring and some more time to worry less about day to day and be focused more laser focused in following his mission. And I said, well, what do you need? What are you looking for? Uh, he kind of pitched his idea, his thought. I was all in. So I said, if it makes sense to everybody, let's roll. And so that started us down the path of figuring out where we all stood, where we all wanted to stand, and it led to a very good path where now Larry can focus on his mentorship with BCOs and truck drivers, and I think he's actually really going to look at truck drivers more specific. Where we've been very focused on BCOs, he's going to focus on really any truck driver that's in business, just needs to get finances in line, that needs to hone the process and things like that. So I think he's happy as a clam, getting to just focus on that and us pull the day to day, and us focus with all the 2 a.m. breakdowns and everything else, and not be involved. But that's what brought us to where we are right now.
When you first came along, and we had that first conversation, I was really excited because I've been inside a bubble, a Landstar bubble, and I didn't see anything outside of that. And so, what this was going to give me an opportunity is like, wow, I'm going to get to see warehousing and distribution and how an MC works. And um, I could see that this was going to be able to broaden at least our horizons, whether or not we did anything with it. But it was just going to give me a lot of context on how the industry works in ways that I had not seen yet. And so when I got the call one day from Larry, guess who's sitting on my couch? And I'm like, no doubt, Barton. That would be, And he was like, "What's Blake Chastain?" I'm like, okay, all right. And then you came to West Virginia the next day. We spent a couple of days together, and we kind of laid out the vision. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, well, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And so now we're here 6 or 7 months later, and you now own the company and me and everything else with it. But I'm really thankful that you came along. I'm happy with now seeing that it's not just hey, what could we do? And now it's what can we do? We really got a really interesting opportunity here. So now, having said all that, why don't you give us a little history on how Blake got to where Blake is in the other businesses and how all that came to be?
Sure. I always, when I get to tell my story, and everybody says, why transportation? I get to truly say, like most people, I didn't pick transportation. Transportation kind of picked me, and I kind of stumbled in. It all started with a conversation standing in a church parking lot one day where I was just kind of chewing the fat with this guy that I had just met. And I was working in security work at the time as a young buck. He goes, "Hey, man, have you ever thought about going into sales?" He said, "You sound like you talk to anybody." I said, what sales? I just show you how dumb I was at the time. And he goes, "Well, we got a service, and you basically go around to different manufacturers. You talk to them and you convince them to use our service." Okay. So I was coming off of a security contract at the time. He said, "How about you just come ride with me and just see what you." I said, "Sure." So I get in the car with him, and truck to be more specific. We're going to be historically correct. And we ride up to this dock, and we walk right up on it. And we start talking to this guy, and we do just like we did in the parking lot. Start chewing the fat. We get to the end of that conversation, and the gentleman who was training me, his name was Jeff. He said, "Hey man, what's the deal with this freight right over here?" And the guy said, "Well, I don't know. We're going to be calling somebody a little bit. Needs to run up to Pennsylvania and whatever." He said, "Well, hey, you mind if I put a rate on that?" I said, "Sure. What would you do it for?" Pulled out his calculator. He did the miles, figured it all out. He said, "We can do it for X amount." Yeah, I said, "How quick can you be here?" "I have a truck here in 30 minutes. He said, "Sounds good. Draw it up." Well, there was a truck coming, and we get back in Jeff's truck, and we pull off. I said, "Hold on a minute. You want to tell me what you do is you ride around in this truck and you just talk to people all week long, and then they cut you a check at the end of the week?" And he said, "Well, it's a little more difficult than that." I said, "Don't look like it." you know,
Yeah.
Little did I know.
Yeah.
So I spent the next couple of years as a salesman. I was a, very productive salesman. Again, I was too stupid to fail because I didn't know any.
Mhm.
I was told just walk in, talk to people until they give you freight, and that's literally what I did. To be fair, at the time, I didn't know the difference between a straight truck, tractor trailer. You couldn't tell me the difference between UPS, Southeastern Freight Lines, and Swift. It was all the same to me. I literally remember thinking my first couple of weeks on the job was like, well, if you got this UPS guy coming every day anyway, why wouldn't you just have him pick up everything? And they're like, well, that's not how it works. That's how stupid my first day. So when you get a salesperson, whichever camera we're in right now, when you're talking to a salesperson, understand they may not even know which direction's up. You need to know that, okay? Because literally, I learned later on, I thought I was something special. Sometimes sales is any warm body that's willing to walk in and talk to people. But that all being said, I became very productive. But I also learned later on in my career the reason I was productive was because I was sold into more than just making them use our product. It was teaching them how to use it to the best of their ability, having the bravery to look them in the eyes and go, no, our product's not what you need. You need this. You need to go find somebody that does this. Be willing to walk away from work was a big tool in my box as well. So that all being said, I progressed as a salesperson to the point where I thought I was doing really good, making a very, very strong salary that, quite frankly, after that, I wouldn't see again for over a decade. But and then along the way, I made some strategic moves, like I married the boss's daughter and, things like that, so I could work my way up the chain. And so I'll never forget Thanksgiving of that year, the week of Thanksgiving. My boss wasn't exactly a man of many words, and he walked in on that Monday and said, "Hey, starting next Monday, you're the new director of operations. Congratulations." Turned around and walked out. And I was like, hey, hold on. I don't know how to be a director of operations. What does that look like? And he said, well, don't worry. He said, Gene's going to teach you everything. No. Gene was this older gentleman that worked for us part-time. He'd already worked a very successful career and had just worked with us part-time just to help us along our way. I don't know, maybe it was his mission. But again, just to keep it all in perspective, that was the week of Thanksgiving. We came back from Thanksgiving. Right before Christmas, Gene tells me, hey, man, he said, I got this little procedure I'm going to have done right after Christmas. He said, when we get back in here in January, we're going to hit the ground running. We're going to take off. He said, you be ready because it's going to be like drinking water out of a fire. I said, yes, sir. I'll be ready. Gene Davis, God rest his soul, went in for that little procedure, and he didn't come off the table. So here's your boy, come January 1st, with no clue how to do it. And you know a little bit about that, don't you, Chris?
I do.
You know, trial by fire.
Yeah.
So I literally just started having to peel the layers back on the onion. Say, okay, we'll deal with problems as they come, and I'll learn as I can. And I'll never forget, because that's January 1, March 1, we've got insurance renewal. And for those of you who don't work with Landstar, you know what's coming next. Those of you who work with Landstar, think you're lucky stars don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But I basically had to learn how trucking insurance worked in this short little period of time. Luckily, Frank McCravey, God rest his soul, he's passed on now. He was 83 years old the day I met him, and he came in to sell me insurance. He starts his spiel. And I guess he saw the glazed over look in my eyes, and he said, "Son, you don't have a clue what you're doing, do you?" "Sir, I have." He said, "Get your bag. We're going to lunch." And that man spent the next 3 months teaching me everything he knew about trucking. Everything. And if you haven't picked up on it by now, hopefully one thing you'll learn about me is I have a very firm feeling none of us show up where we're.
Right.
There's people who bring us along our way and pour into us that make us who we are. And he taught me more about insurance in that 60-day, 90-day period than most people will ever know. And he had no regret.
Yeah.
Because there was no guarantee I was going to use his service. There was no guarantee I was going to buy insurance. But he wasn't going to let this young 23-year-old, 24-year-old, however old I was at the time, throw it all out the window because stupid, you know?
Yeah.
So that kind of progressed. Well, you know, life happens, and then all of a sudden here we are looking 2008, 2009 in the face. And as I'd mentioned, I'd married the boss's daughter. So what did that mean? Me, my wife, father-in-law, mother-in-law, we're all sitting in the same boat. And we look up one day and we realize, hey, this boat sinks. 2008 sunk a lot of boats.
Yeah.
We're in trouble. We're in trouble. There's nobody can pick up the slack. So I stepped away and I bounced around a few jobs. Now, at this point, we had owned, at that time, Rapid Service owned 60 trucks total. And that was 50 trucks owned by the company. There was owner-operators, a few vans in. And by the time 2008, 2009 had its way with Rapid Service, it was by sheer willpower and he doesn't like his name on the internet, but the owner, Raleigh Kanoki, who had many lawyers, many insurance people, many advisors tell him, just file bankruptcy. And it still makes me emotional to think about the fact that I remember him looking at me and said, "No, I dug this hole. I will throw the dirt back in." And he dug in and he fought the fight, and the company's still running today. Now, that all being said, it looks different now than it did back then, but it's still here. And it's because a man chose to stand up, own his mistakes, and do the right. So again, just learning more, putting that in the treasure chest. I went into international freight and decided that I liked airplanes, so I was going to go into air freight. So I went into air freight for about 10 years. Learned, I won't say everything I could, but I will say I became really good at it. Loved it. Man, I loved it. So that was so much fun. It's a little mundane. Air freight's 90% paper, but then there's that one 747 you get to walk up next to as they load a Jeep turbine and you're just going, yeah, this is all right. kind of like a lot of you truck drivers do when that unnamed truck pulls up and you go,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't ever want to own that thing, but
Yeah.
she is sexy. You know, that being said, I did that for a while, and one of my customers, basically, they had started their garage. Uh, their office table was their dinner table, and they started making a product in China, uh, refining it here, selling it here, and they had started to grown beyond service providers that they had, starting failure points, and but they were blowing, man. It's like, and after a few years, I get the call, hey man, would you entertain the idea of coming on with us and helping us clean up all this mess? At this point, since this is a ringing point today, it was a ringing point back then. Tariffs were eating them alive, right? It's okay. How do we get past this? How do we figure this out? How do we sort this out? So I stepped in with them, and I'm drawing this conversation out, but basically, he gave me an opportunity to see the manufacturing. So I'm overseeing at that time logistics within the manufacturing mindset. So now I'm booking trucks, sitting on the other side. I'm the guy that everybody wants business and everybody wants some stuff. And so we grew as I got there. Again, that term director of operations creeped back into my life. People love responsibility for some reason. I don't understand why, but here I am, right? So I start in as director of operations for them, and while I don't take any of the credit for this because they had a great sales team, they had a great leadership team, I just was a cog in the wheel that helped facilitate. We grew from a 4 million top end revenue to the year I left, 165. And the year that I stepped out was basically because we couldn't find vendors to give us the level of service that we were looking for in distribution, warehousing, trucking. It was just the industry was falling apart, and everybody you went to would make big promises and deliver. And you said, "Hey, this one truck, and they're not going to be there till 4:15. We close at 4. Well, how much? Tell me what you need. I'll pay you for your services, but I need you to stay and get the truckload closed."
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to work. So I stepped out, started my own distribution, and I said, this is going to be a distribution company that's based around the customer, not around us. We're going to be based around giving the customer. We don't get to define the way it works, right? The manufacturer define the way it works, and we work with their system. And I'm not going to get too far off philosophy. That's a big missing patient.
100%.
We think it revolves around us, not understanding we are the servants in this picture.
Mm-hmm.
It's our job to facilitate what they need. If they could do it themselves, they would do it. They would do so.
Right.
But they can't. So they're coming to you with a defined job. They expect us to toe the line and perform for them. So since then, we have a lot of internal mottos and stuff, that we've applied, and some of those that we don't say out loud or do the thinking for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
See the obstacles that they can't see. That's our job. But also, our external motto is, it's our job to make you. That's it. That's
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that a customer should not be talking about in a negative way when they buy a product is how bad the.
Right.
We use the
last thing they remember.
Exactly. But the thing is, we use the analogy of, you birth a child, pour everything you have into that child. You grow it, take care of it, take it to the doctor, you feed it, put it to bed, you put it on get a good sleep cycle, everything going. Sometime right around 5 years old, unless you do things like me and Chris at homeschool, you go hand in hand with that little child, and you walk into a school system and you lay that hand in someone else's hand and say, I'm going to trust you 8 hours a day to take care of what means most. Like these manufacturers make this product for heart, soul, creating it, and then they're going to trust some jackleg truck driver to be the last thing that trusts.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't. So we decided to create our own network. Say that's not the way it's. You might as well take our name off the side of the truck, your name off the side. However, your culture works, however you personify yourself to the customer, that's the way we're going to our stuff. And they're going to get the same level of respect delivered from us they would to our conversation and ties everything. That's where we are today.
So you basically decided to step in and create, the market wouldn't give you the services that you need. And so you just had to go create it and be the whole thing from, so you're having to gather the product, warehouse it, package it, ship it, and then handle final delivery to make sure it shows up when, where, and how it's supposed to. Are you involved in the setup of their final product when it shows up there?
No, so we're what I think the industry's now calling a 5PL. You know, they come out with new
Oh yeah,
terms every day. But I think we fit into what's called the 5, meaning we're directly plugged into the manufacturer of the product. So once a product's manufactured, wherever in the world it's manufactured, we're plugged in immediately at that point. So when it comes off the line, we then start working. Okay, when will it be ready? Okay, it's going to be ready on this. Okay, we ordering containers, scheduling everything out. We get it shipped from wherever it is in the world. It's brought over here. These products that we work with these companies never physically touch an address that belongs to the manufacturer. They never see it. If they see it, it's to come to my facility and look. So from the time it's manufactured, literally till it's sitting on site at the customer's door, we're in control. So we handle all of it. Shipping containers, unloading the containers. When orders come in, tune of somewhere around 8,000 orders last year, filled all over the United States. We pull the orders, collect them, ship them out via LTL, VS, truckload, whatever the case may be. Now, directly to your question, we do not assemble on site. We will take it as far as getting it inside. So we will do white glove delivery up to room of, and that's step. There has been some conversations and some requests of, well, can you hang the unit? This, that. We've always shied away from it. Just that's a different skill set.
Yeah.
It's a different skill set, and it's a different insurance coverage. It's just a different. Now we partner with over 300 resellers in their network that do handle that part of it. So what we'll do is, again, in this door-to-door mentality, we'll say, okay, installer, you're going to be there. Let's say we're going to do, a lot of this is education, right? So let's say we're going to do 16 schools. Well, you don't want to deliver all 16 schools in one day. Where are they going to put?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't have any, these schools don't have big schools. It ends up in the library, some gymnasium. So what we'll do is we work with that install. He says, okay, well, I'm going to install school number 1 and 2 tomorrow. So we schedule it there. Okay, we go do 1, unload everything there, get it inside for him. He does all the installs. Second truck's waiting, site 2 to basically reset. So we work again, beginning to end, from taking it from the manufacturer all the way to project.
Okay. So now we have this opportunity that really neither of us saw coming, I guess. we have this fleet of trucks at Landstar. Um, we have the opportunities to just build that fleet, to just grow it beyond whatever it is today. But now you have all of this other transportation experience, and Landstar. So many people just don't understand how big Landstar is, and unfortunately, we'll make judgments off of very minor interactions in the market that are not pretty. Um, but Landstar's massive. Landstar has footprints in lots of in sea, and so now we have this blank sheet. We can go, okay, we've got these trucks. You have all this distribution experience. Where did the agency? Was that part of your thought process of coming in, or was that something that?
So I guess the part I don't talk enough about is along with the distribution and everything we do, we're running also in the background a more traditional style trucking company. So we are picking up A to B for other people as well. So that's always running in the background. So we have brokerage license, have our own authority, we have all of that that runs in the back behind everything I described. And uh, you know, as I met with you guys and I became more in tune to what Landstar was doing, what Landstar could do. Um, you know, going back to Rapid Service, where I started my transportation career, they were a Landstar agent back in the day,
Oh, okay.
and so I had a little bit of exposure to it, but it was a relationship at the time that didn't work because we were more expedited based. And back then, Landstar didn't play in those realms as much. Um, that was something I think that's been a later development, and so when we're looking to book 8,000 plus loads a year, capacity becomes. I want to be careful because you addressed this in one of your podcasts, and it's made me change how I say this. Right? I don't think capacity is the issue. There's plenty of trucks out
Mm-hmm.
there. Capacity that you can trust
Yeah.
is at a premium, right?
Competent capacity.
There you go. Competent capacity. So that being said, we wanted to have an in with Landstar. We wanted to have an ability ourselves to go directly to the BCO and say, we're going to pick you. And we felt like Landstar gave us a better magnifying glass on who we were using, where if you just put something on that, you don't know. And then half the time you say, Joey bids on a load and says, "Oh, I'm going to take it." Well, then when the truck shows up, Joey ain't on the truck. It's
Yeah.
his third cousin brother, third removed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oh, well, he just asked me to come get the truck and do this load for y'all. Are you even a truck driver?" You don't even know. So I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had trucks pull up, and I tell them because we're very heavily involved in electronics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll tell them, hey, this is going to be high value. This stuff has to be handled with kid gloves. You got to really baby it. And then they show up and there's still chicken feathers in the truck from where they just hauled a load of chicken somewhere. And I'm like, one of these things is not like the others.
Yeah.
Guys, come on, help us out. So we were looking to kind of clean that process up. And one thing I learned from listening to you guys and having conversations with you guys is how you have such great relationships with uh, different agents within the Landstar network. And that's what I wanted relationship. I'm tired of just trusting any Tom, Dick, or Harry that throw a number up on that and say, "Oh, I can do it for this." No, I want to know that when Jim picks up the phone, says, "Yeah, I'll be there in 8 hours." That Jim's going to hit the dock, and once I put that freight on Jim's truck, I don't have to give it a second thought. That joker's going to do exactly what it needs to. So that's what we were looking for. So we created the agency to give us that ability to start building an internal Landstar network to get a group of BCOs could haul for us, that we could get trusted. A lot of our customers were starting to ask questions about, hey, could you haul this machine? Can you do this oversized load? And at the time, I don't know. Does that fit on a I don't
Yeah.
know. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a guy who knows how to put people together, how to get the right people in a room, how to make things happen, not necessarily the guy that is carrying. So, uh, my relationship with you guys, and of course, the great Phil Freeze, and say, hey man, this thing that they want to move. Can that be even be moved by a truck? And he's like,
Yeah.
you got enough money, you can do
Yeah.
anything.
Write this check.
you know, uh, so that's just opened up huge doors for us to start having conversations that we've had to bow out at. And that's a big value where value to me, not just me, but value. So that's been a big move for us as well. But that's where the agency kind of came from. It was just birthed out of a desire to have a better relationship with DC.
I'd like to have your perspective on something. I've always believed that in the ebb and flow of the market, it goes up and down and up and down. Always has and always will. All right. It'll never go back to 2020, 21 level. It's not going to happen. Write that down. But I feel like customers are willing to pay when they know that the quality of service is there, right? I had that experience with the customer that I dealt with for 7 years where he would be tempted when the market would shift and capacity would start to get cheaper, that people would come in and offer, like, oh, hey man, we'll take care of you for look at all this money you'll save, and then they're lured into that, and then they get their windows thrown across a fence in the middle of the night, and they get what they pay for, right?
Right.
But I also can't fault the shipping supervisor who has three supervisors above him that says, hey buddy, you better get these costs under control. And so naturally, they're going to take that cheaper carrier. They're going to get what they're paid for. But I know that if I'll keep my quality of service at the top, and if I am acting and behaving as the elite, I'm going to be able to get my money, and sometimes that customer has to come back around, because that customer that I had for so long, they made a change that I could not afford to stay with, and I left. And then when they got desperate again because they could not find another person to haul that freight, the agent said, well, this is what it's going to cost you. Well, there's absolutely no way I'm going to pay that. You're crazy. You've lost your mind. What if I get Chris back to do it? Oh, well, where do I sign? I mean, it was an instant turnaround for him, but he knew that without question, I was going to take care of his freight and take care of his customers. And it was at least one load out of the week that he wasn't going to have to worry about. And he was willing to pay almost anything for that. So having been on your side of the table, um, do do people recognize that the way I do? Do you think, or is it just lost in the blur?
I think it's a little bit of a crapshoot, if I'm being completely honest, because you can, if there's anything I can leave with you, never underestimate the greed of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of times people are willing to roll the dice. Okay, if I can save $500 a load on this shipment, is it worth? I mean, it's just point A to point B, right?
Right.
What's the worst that could happen? And the thing is, the only way people learn that lesson in transportation, hard way.
Yeah.
And that's what really sucks, because nobody really wants that for anybody. I don't want my customer, somewhere it feels good, but the worst thing to ever have to say to somebody is, I told you so.
Yeah.
It hurts, and it should hurt, because you don't want to wish bad on people. But at the same token, no, we deal with that too. There's some companies, like some of the technology companies we deal with, their product is of such a value that literally the loss of one pallet would cover the difference between what I charge and what somebody else charges for a month.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, they'll pay me to make sure that and make sure that I'll take care of it and get it done the way it's to be. And then there's other factors too. You know, you talk a lot about communicating with agents, communicating. If you make other people's lives easier, there's a lot of people out there that will pay you extra money because there's really two mindsets, right? If we're being just bluntly honest, right? There's one mindset of, I just don't, I'll pay you. You know, I'm sitting in a chair. Like you said, I got 3 supervisors. As long as they're not breathing down my neck, I don't care what it eat my money anyway.
Right.
What do I? And then there's others of, well, this guy's been putting his thumb on me. I need to get it cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. And then I'm going to get it so cheap, they're going to smile real big. And then when it gets screwed up, guess who's going to get in trouble? Me.
Yep.
You know, so there's a lot, there's so many dynamics playing behind the scenes and all of that. But I think the key thing, what you said, it's a little off topic, but I think it's very important. We can't take business so personally that if something does get pulled from us, that we show our butts and that we act like a jerk about it. Oh, you're going to see when this all falls apart. Because again, that can go one or two ways. It could completely fall apart. They're never coming back to you because you're an absolute jerk.
Yeah.
Or two, it goes perfectly fine, and you just thought more of your worth than what you were actually, right? So that being said, I think it's very important to understand that it's just business. And if somebody tells you, hey, we're going to go with this other guy cheaper and, you know, whatever, you have to have a little bit of grace and just step away and say, okay, well,
good luck.
I'll still be here.
Yeah.
I'll still be here if you need me. You know, just remember, don't lose my phone number. If this person can't get it done the way you want it done, you know where to find me, and I'll never take advantage of you. Now, I'm not going to sit here as a businessman and as a person who was very profit driven for a lot of years when I was sitting at that air freight desk, that I did jobs where I looked at it, I just had stupid, you know, but I knew in my heart of hearts that profit was a little healthy. And if somebody came in and underbid me, well, they just, I was taking it. Right. So I think as long as you are offering a fair rate for the level of service you're giving somebody, then you just got to keep your head on straight. Don't lose your temper if somebody comes in and underbids you. Just nod and say, I'm always here.
Yeah. But you also have to have a level of service that's worth what you're charging.
100%.
You know, you can't just put out a blanket number there and not back that up with incredible levels of service that just blows their socks off.
That's right.
And looks back and say, oh wow, I want that guy back. Don't charge $5 a mile and then show up and give them a $1.50 service. You can't do that because it will destroy your reputation at that point. And then your chance of ever getting back in the door is over. Yeah.
You know, one of the trucking companies that we've acquired, we laugh and joke about it a lot because that guy's the owner's been in the business for 28 years, and he would always answer the phone. You know, we'll keep his name out of it, but he goes, "Hey, it's so and so, the who's your daddy of expedited freight," right? That's the way he always answers the phone. Which we joke about it because in today's age, he's actually had a couple of agents that called back and said he made their people feel uncomfortable. Right? So whatever. But you know, one of the first questions we had when we started wanting to look at quality control and make sure that we were living up to the standards was, are we?
Mm-hmm.
Are we the who's your daddy of expedited freight? Now, if we are, then you charge like,
yeah.
If we're not, we got to look at the rates, you know. Yeah. And the thing is, you know, that company was doing expedited freight before expedited freight was a thing. You know, they were the go-to company, you know, in the day. Well, now the industry's changed a bit, and expedited freight's still the redheaded stepchild of the transportation industry. So we've had to look at some things, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Step one before you can even look at, well, I deserve more money, is
Are
what
you worth
level
it?
of service are you?
Yeah. Are you worth it?
Yeah, 100%.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about the vision for Blue Ribbon going forward. Um, the obviously the mentoring training fleet has been my personal mission um, for all of these years, and I don't really know how to do anything else. But I recognize the opportunity um, for Blue Ribbon to be the elite. That's what we're after. We want, you know, we have the view of I know how the agents at Landstar that work with us, I know how they feel about it. I know how the TikTok comment section, okay, and these two are not in any way related to each other. Um, but we have a great opportunity to be the elite top 1% at Landstar among, and listen, out of 7,000 trucks, there's a lot of elite people here. Now they don't make any noise and they don't have TikTok accounts and YouTube channels, but they're out there doing their deal. Shout out to Scott White. Scott will be happy to hear his name because when Scott shows up, it's exactly what you're talking about because his trailer is set up to deliver the exact level of service that's needed. And there's so many people like them in the government, the AA&E, and the heavy haul. And so something you said before we recorded is we want to be the elite. And if you want to be the elite, come join us and we will show you how that happens. But understand, we're going to be the elite. And so you're going to behave like the elite or you're going to go behave somewhere else.
Right.
So I guess kind of talk about, because this is, I've got to believe over 6 or 7 months that this has been percolating. You've kind of got some ideas where you want to go with this.
Absolutely. So, and I don't want anything that I say to be mistaken as arrogance, but I've always believed, in the old adage, anything worth doing is worth doing.
Yeah.
And I don't come to work to do things halfway.
Right.
If my name is going to be on the side of something, or I'm going to sign something, you can take it to the bank that I'm going to do it the absolute best I can. So that being said, what we were talking about before is you got to put first things. And for us at Blue Ribbon, that means because drivers come, drivers go. Program members come, program members go. What stays the same? Blue Ribbon.
Yeah.
So we have to protect first things first. And what we're protecting first and foremost, is the name of Blue Ribbon within the BCO Landstar network. We want people to know, if you want it done right and you want it done right now,
Yeah.
you're calling Blue Ribbon. These are the guys. These are the ones that are going to get it done. Now, the byproduct of that is we're open book. So anybody who steps through these doors gets the training. They get the benefit of being close to people who have done it, succeeded at it. They, not to share all the secret sauce, but, the fact that our flatbed division, our platform division, they can't even pull away from a shipper until a group of their peers have reviewed their rig, their securement and how everything goes there. Like, yes, we're training by committee. We're trucking by committee. We're transporting by committee. We're making sure that things don't get overlooked and that things don't fall by the wayside. And it don't happen by accident. It's done on purpose.
Yeah.
So when you come into this program and you want to be a part of it, well, we won't train you, because when you step away, however long you stay, when you step away, we pray that you can take everything that we've taught you, everything that you've seen, everything you've been exposed to, and you should be able to run a very successful, very productive business if you're willing to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
That's the if. That's the only if in this conversation. The only if is if you choose to continue to do it after you leave Blue Ribbon. What is not an if is while you're here, This is the standard. This is where you're going to live if you're a part of this program. That's not in debate. Now, it's arguable. Are we jerks? Are we not jerks? You can have that conversation later. But what we are is people with very high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
We understand accidents happen. We understand life happens. We understand traffic happens. Like, we're not sitting here ready to beat you over the head because life is dealing you lemons, you know. But what we're looking for is a group of people who take those lemons and make some lemonade.
Yeah.
You know, let's make something happen. You know, you told a great story. I don't want to date this particular podcast, but you told a great story in episode whatever Friday was about a driver who was broke down, who was dealt a horrible deck of cards, but he took it, climbed under the truck himself, did what professionals
Yeah.
couldn't do,
Mm-hmm.
and he fixed the truck with a little bit of help from our mechanic, but he got the truck running, got it back on the road, and he's back making money.
Yep.
Like, that's what we're looking for is an understanding of it. Even though you may not own these trucks when you come to work here, they may belong to somebody else. You still have a responsibility to keep them up and running, keep them going, keep them moving. Because if you're working on a percentage of every load, well, if the truck owners aren't making money, guess who else isn't making money? You're not. You know, so it's a team effort from beginning to end. So yeah, my thought process in this is we've become very purposeful in what we're teaching people. We want to be very purposeful in what, you know, they come into orientation, what they walk away with. You know, some of that is, hey, here's the standards of Blue Ribbon. But then for us to identify, ooh, man, this guy's got a lot of potential. You know, he knows a lot about the industry, but he can't read a map to save it. Okay, well, we're going to take the responsibility and say, hello, welcome to 7th grade geography.
Yeah.
This is a map, and this is how it works. You know, South Carolina's next to North, and Tennessee's over there to the left. You know, and have those conversations because, again, if a driver fails on the road, sure, that driver's the first line of failure. But as a manager, we also have to look at it as we failed too. You know, maybe we didn't give them the tools they needed to see. You know, we have to evaluate. But every time something goes wrong, we have to take a second look at it and say, okay, why did this happen? Oh, it's because Jim Bob can't find, you know, an exit to save his life. Well, okay, well, what did we do to help Jim Bob find that exit? Nothing. At the end of the day, we all failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all failed. That's fantastic. So I think being mindful of those kind of things, pour into people, because the bottom line is one of the biggest things that I will give this generation is there's been a lot of take in previous years from company owners, things like that. Last couple of decades has seemed to swing the pendulum a little too far with the removal of benefits and the removal of taking care of people, stuff like that. But if there's anything we can give these drivers that come into this particular program, it's a combined, I don't know, 100 years of experience.
A bunch.
Hey, you know, and one thing I tell people all the time when they come to me and they look in my warehouse, because one thing that always blows people's mind is how much production we get done in our warehouse and how clean they look. You know, you put those two things together. And all I tell them is this: you mess something up enough time, you'll eventually figure out how to do it. And that's me. That's me in a nutshell. I've made enough mistakes that I'm kind of finally starting to figure stuff out. And so anybody who walks into our program with their head hung down or their tail tucked between their legs, they're like, hey, I made some mistakes. And, you know, there's a lot of stories out there like the one yours share so openly of, and I screwed up. I'm never going to judge anybody for being at that place in life. It's what they do next I'm going to judge. You know, you want to own your mistakes and say, look, I screwed up. Can you show me how to not do that again? Absolutely. Everything I have, every bit of mental equity that I have now belongs to you. as long as you protect our family, you protect our team, you can have it all. And so that's just a general view I think that we all share in that we'll pour whatever we have into you, but you just got to make sure that when you come here, you're not working on your own name. You're wearing a blue ribbon tattoo right across your forehead.
Yep.
You know, and even bigger than that, you got a Landstar tattoo right next to it. You know, and how are we ever going to increase people's views, make people's view of Landstar better? We just keep playing into the. If we keep screwing up like a bunch of people who don't care. Like, the only way we make things better is to start here with the individual and try to move forward in group. That's what.
Yeah. I've said a lot of times to people, if you don't know how to do something, man, I can fix that. I mean, I've got all these years of experience. I've got all these different things that I've gone through, and I've gone down that path. If you don't know how to do something, I can fix that. If you don't care, I
Right.
can't help you. You
Right.
know. And it's funny. I've glanced over at my computer, and there's a message popped up from one of the BCO mentors, and he just picked up a preloaded trailer, and it says, "Hey, the license plate, all the numbers are missing off the trailer. If I go by a terminal, will they fix it, or is this something that I should avoid the terminal, like, or the operating center? Like, what do I do?" Because he's thinking, okay, I'm a truck driver, my license plate sucks, and that's probably an old trailer. Bill pops up and says, "Buy a black permanent marker and fix it." Like, because if you tell Landstar, they're just going to say, okay, well, we'll order a new plate. Awesome. Doesn't help me today.
Right.
Right? It doesn't help me today. But I can take a black marker and go to that old faded out license plate, and I can trace all the numbers and make it stand out and look right. And I'm fixing my problem today, you
Right.
know? And that's the kind of, because I get calls all the time. Well, the same guy yesterday, he was like, "Hey," and this is the difference. The difference between what should I do and here's my two options. Which one do you think is better? Well, that one I know when you've already at least thought down two paths and say, okay, I can do it this way or I can do it that way. Well, then I can use my experience to say, well, both are valid, right? Both get you to the destination, but this one's better because I can always look the next step forward.
Right.
And say, I'll do it this way because that's going to set you up in a better position. Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. And that's what I spend my life doing. But if you can't get yourself to the point to find those first two options and you just say, all right, well, somebody needs to tell me what, well, I can do that, but I'm not really teaching you anything if I just give you the answer every single time. So when we put people in, we're letting you out there where you can suffer the consequences of your actions. And one thing that I always loved Larry said, he said, look, we're going to let you walk right over to the edge and we'll grab a hold of your belt right before you fall off the cliff, you know, because sometimes you have to experience not knowing how your logbook works. You know, trucking industry, I'm looking at you. The fact that this industry is putting people out that don't know how to read maps, that don't know how hours of service work, this industry is failing people. And this is something that we're having to come back and fix on the backside, like you said, because I can only hire experienced drivers.
Right.
But unfortunately, in 2025, the trucking industry has failed miserably at producing experienced drivers that know how to drive trucks.
100%.
And it's so frustrating. Well, you know, I came to South Carolina so we could record some and introduce everybody to you. We are going to probably change the format of the podcast a little bit. Completely undetermined yet what all that's going to look like. But we do want to, I think, be more intentional with what we produce on the podcast. TikTok is so much better for live, you know, so we may go that route. But the main thing is we want to provide good quality content, you know.
Right.
We want to provide good content that even if you don't come to Blue Ribbon, if you don't come to Landstar, we can give you good content that can help improve your life and improve your chances of making it in the industry. So here we are. This is the new Blue Ribbon, um, and we're very excited for the future. If you are if you're curious about what we do, I encourage you. There's over 230 episodes on the podcast. Um, Go to the website, blueribbonlogistics.com. You can read all about the program. There's plenty of content on TikTok for you to see. If you can read about the master class, if you would like to apply for the master class, you click the button, you answer a couple of questions, and it will set you up for an interview and schedule it. So, we want to provide an opportunity for people to learn without risk. There's no lease purchases, there's no goofy contracts. If you want to learn how to do this the way we do it, which is at that top 1% level, come and do it with us. But please understand, you're going to have to be at that top 1% level. So, with that being said, we'll shut this down. Go ahead.
I'm going to pull a Larry Long on you right here.
Oh, here we go.
Here it comes. I'm going to hit you with a teaser. We also, and this is a little premature, so don't anybody get crazy about this or flooding us with emails. But we are looking into and creating platforms that will allow us a little more opportunity to be more personable. Because again, this all started because I just needed some people who thought the way I thought, did things the way I did. And I think a lot of people here have found that. Now, sure, there's trolls, there's whatever. We got them all. And that's great. We don't care. We'll take your free publicity. Jump in. Say what you got to say. But that being said, I do want a place where everybody can have a voice and like minds can talk things out and hash things out. Somebody can just throw something out and say, hey, man, I'm really struggling with this. How are you guys overcoming? And now, listen, you can send us an email and, we get a lot, so we'll do our very best to respond to you. But we can't sit here and promise we'll always catch that. But we are looking at a platform that will allow us to have some moderated conversations, scheduled conversations where people can come in and ask these questions, and it won't be like trying to watch YouTube comments where some slide by and we don't catch them and stuff like that. So just know that there are some platform changes coming that will allow people to have a better voice and allow us to engage in conversations. I think there was a request, when was it, Friday night maybe, where a gentleman asked, hey, can I get on your securement conversation? It's like, that's probably not going to work because, hey, we're truckers. You can't necessarily get in that deep because a lot of frustration gets shared and things like that. We want to protect people and give people a place to talk. But I do think that we can create an environment where you can come in and you can ask questions and say, hey, man, I've been hauling this same kind of load, and no matter what I do, I can't get my tarp secured down properly. And we got people who can be in there moderating that can comment and be like, have you ever thought about this? Or maybe send you a link to a product whatever the case may be. So, again, don't want to get too far down that road because it's still very much in the development stage, but just want to let you know we are making moves to be more involved in your day-to-day and trying to build a community.
Sweet. All right, so we appreciate everybody watching, and we'll be with you next time.